Hi there, my name is Mellie Valencia, and today I'm going to be answering the question, do video games cause violence? This is for MassCom 1330, fall of 2022. So, video games do not cause violence. However, it can influence violence. I believe in our day and age, video games do not cause violence, but I am a believer that all thoughts one has is influenced by some prior decision or prior expectation. So while video games can be gruesome and violent, I do not believe that it directly provokes violence. People act out in many ways because of many different reasons, but to blame such a broad topic like video game violence on that seems to be kind of reaching. Video games bring a plethora of good things to people, such as being connected, celebrating winnings, and some stress-inducing effects to some people playing. So, I read the article first. It's titled Violent Video Games, Harmful Trigger or Harmless Diversion by Brenda K. Witterhold. She mentions how experts argue that violent video games can lead to increased aggression in players. After this, I asked myself, why would anyone be purposely aggressive just because of video games? To me, you have to ask more than one question whenever that arises. Um, why are people being aggressive? What is happening? What are the different events that led up to somebody to get to that point where you're all like, oh yeah, it's definitely video games? Because there's multiple steps that somebody gets to explode like that. Um, yeah, so there's more than one question to be asked, as you can see here. Okay. Okay, so put myself here. For the next article I read, it was Effects of Violent Video Games on Aggressive Cognition and Aggressive Behavior. Um, I believe that the test that they ran was it was a little weird to me. For the violent video game, they chose Street Fighter 2 and then they chose Tetris for the non-violent video game. To me, I kind of feel like Tetris is a little hard sometimes. It's also very brain consuming. It uses a lot of your cognitive thinking to, be able to pre-place where you're going to put all the pieces, and it's a puzzle game for sure. So I feel like they should have chosen a better game that would have been like more relaxing for somebody to play. Like I put like Cooking Mama in my paper because that's just something that pops up in my mind that I think a child would like how they put the test subjects as children. Okay. Okay. So I'll put myself right here. Okay. So in this figure two, they're talking about interaction between the game on sex. So they did male and female on aggressive behavior. In their findings, they found that violent video games did not have a significant effect on aggressive behavior. However, they did find that violent video games did significantly increase aggressive cognition and behavior. So in my mind, that obviously makes sense that, the person who plays the violent video games is going to have more cognitive thinking in that area than somebody with the non-violent video games. But in none of their findings did they state that because of the violent video games, the children were more aggressive purely because of the game. It was the same. You can see right here, this gap is close to negligible. It's very, very close right here. So, and you see this is a non-violent video game, and then this is the violent video game. So they're very close in range right there. Um, okay. However, what I did agree with in the first or in the first paper that I read, she said, seeing violence leads to a desensitization of violence in general. And I talked about this in my last paper, how I feel like our generation, especially, is so desensitized to everything happening. We see killings in the streets, we see videos online, we see every sort of gruesome thing that you can imagine. it's right in the hands of our fingertips. And I believe my generation was the one who really grew up with that, who grew up from a young age seeing those vulgar things happening. So I do believe that video games can be partly that cause of it. There is a lot of gruesome things that happen in video games. But like I said before, there's many beneficial things that come from video games, and also you can't blame violence on video games. There's just so many different things that can happen. There's different aspects in people's lives that gets them to that point where they feel like going crazy. Like if you're talking about um, somebody causing a school shooting because of a violent video game, there's many different reasons why somebody might choose to do that, and you cannot blame it purely just on the video game that they played once or twice every week. Like there's more thinking that goes into that to cause that mass destruction to people. Um, Also, in that paper, she mentions that video games are mostly beneficial to engage in, and those benefits range from cognitive thinking, problem solving, and being therapeutic for people to play. And we talked about in the um, Zhang talked about in his research that there is a lot of cognitive thinking that does come along with those video games, and even if they're violent or non-violent. So there's a lot of advantages to it. I do not feel like video games cause violence. I do feel like it can be influenced by it. And yeah, that is my paper. I hope you enjoyed it.